Good morning and welcome everybody. This is Paul Storm. I work for a company called Micrographics in Cape Town, and we are an Autodesk reseller. And I welcome you on this Friday the 13th. I hope it's a lucky number for you, to our webinar on Autodesk Takeoff and Introduction. We'll try in the time that we've got to display for you as much as what we can with regards to the Takeoff functionality, and hopefully that can help you in your BIM job within South Africa. So we we do have a few clients that use this platform to good effect, and hopefully that can also be of benefit to you. On the agenda today, we've got the following. We want to just discuss quickly about assigning a license, how to set up standards, how to load a PDF vector and a PDF raster file, perhaps a 3D model, and how to create packages, and then to perform a takeoff. So do not make assumptions with the naming on the nomenclature of the platform. They do tend to mix the words. So for instance, when you see the word package, don't confuse that with your coordination packages that you create to share information. It's rather a way of separating items. Also, if you do see the word sheet, it does not have the same meaning as what it would within the build platform. So if you do see specific words that remind you here of other things that you see within the ACC platform, then don't automatically make the assumption that it is the same as what you are used to. So first of all, just as an introduction, Autodesk Takeoff is used to perform quantity takeoffs. The idea behind this is that it's a connected platform. So if you do have access and permissions to your folders and you've got the application, then you can work together as a team to create takeoffs. Maybe if you're in the field and you want to add things, then you can do that. The subscription, just like with the rest of the licenses, includes the Takeoff license, which has specific capabilities for taking off quantities, but it is built on the Docs data repository. So Docs is common to most of these licenses, and Docs has its own capabilities, including reviewing markups, creation of issues and such. That's not really integrated into the Takeoff platform, but it is in the background, and Takeoff leverages the ability to store files in the cloud. Then it's just a basic introduction to Autodesk Takeoff. You can of course take this further and develop it in more detail. And we're going to show you how to create a primary and a secondary classification system. Those might depend upon which part of the world you are in and what standards you are performing your takeoff to. So there is unfortunately only the ability to create two standards within the platform, but we do have bridges these days between hubs and between projects. So I can quite easily envisage a project where you would either separate disciplines or companies, as well as standards that you can use to do your classification systems. So I suspect that bridges will play a role. And then upload the relevant documentation. That is an unfortunate reality, that the Takeoff platform does not leverage the files directly off Autodesk Docs as would the Build platform. Then we're going to perform some quantity takeoffs and see if we can use the AI pattern recognition to identify takeoff items. And then we're also going to look at an export or a takeoff and then export that to an XL file. So assigning the license. Firstly, when you purchase a license, it's done so under a contract. That contract could contain more than one license. Sometimes companies have more than one contract with licenses. However, it is common practice to consolidate all the licenses under one contract. Why is this important? Well, each contract can create a hub, and only the contract manager can create a hub. In the case where you have somebody like an IT manager, then they can create a hub and hand off their license to somebody else who then has been assigned as the hub admin by the IT before handing off the license. So there's a bit of management in that. If you need help with that, if you are an IT manager and you need us to help you with that, please give us a shout and we can assist you with that. Then the hubs could either be in the United States or in the European Union. These days they call it global. I've seen that nomenclature recently. And the EU, well, the reason why that's important is that the EU data laws, for instance, are closely aligned to South Africa's data laws. And so if you are a South African company, then it might be better for you to work with European server, because the data that is residing on the Amazon Web Server, the AWS, in Europe is governed by the regulatory authorities to comply to their data laws and their data standards. Similarly, if you are partnering with somebody in the EU, you would of course want to have your server on the European Union. So currently those are the only two that's available. In the United States, basically if you upload information onto their servers, then they reserve the right to take possession of that information. So my personal work is done on the US server, but most of our clients these days in South Africa would typically go with the EU server. So hopefully that helps you in deciding where to create a hub if you are just buying into the Takeoff and you don't already have a hub that's being managed. Depending on where you are in the world, those considerations might be just as relevant. You might not necessarily have the same laws as South Africa, but there might be some restrictions on that. And you also have to consider your partners when working on a global project. We've been involved in such projects, and it is quite important depending on the type of project that you are doing. So, but again, if you need help with that, you can definitely let us know. And then the permissions, we won't delve into that in detail today. The permissions will be managed as per Autodesk docs. The license itself is a bring your own license. So you'll be able to be invited between projects, and these licenses are assigned by your software coordinator or your person that manages the software on behalf of your company. You can assign it to an individual person, or you must, and you can also unassign and reassign it. However, if you do so too frequently, then you would be in contravention of the EULA with Autodesk. So perhaps just be careful how you go about handing the license around. You finish a project, and then after that maybe reassign it to somebody else. So first up are standards that we can have a look at. I did something this morning quickly which would demonstrate a very simple organizational structure, and then you can see how we set that up. So with that, let me just get hold of the platform over there. All right, so Autodesk Takeoff, if it's been assigned to you, you will see it appearing within the available tools or the available licenses on your Autodesk Construction Cloud. And if you click on Takeoff, it will take you there. So the first thing takes you to your Home tab, and then from there you can navigate further. You'll see that you've got access to something called packages. Now, what packages are, just to reiterate, I might repeat myself during this webinar just to reinforce the idea. A package is a way to create a separation between takeoffs. So if you have a discipline or an area in a building and you want to separate that from a quantity takeoff perspective, maybe you want to do floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, something like that, you can create a package and work within that package. Then we've got sheets and models. Now I've already uploaded at least one model over here. There you can see the model. I have not uploaded the sheet yet. I'd just like to discuss the method that you should use to get your information from Revit into the platform, and then we can upload, and then after that you can see your files. So the files that you see here is the typical file structure that you will see within Docs, but it does not really play much of a part in your takeoffs. And then of course your members and your settings. So files, members and settings, those are exactly the same as what you would see within your Docs, your Autodesk Docs platform. Alright, going into packages, here we can see that we've got our settings. Now Autodesk does tend to standardize the way in which the interface works. So if it's new to you, or if you haven't worked with this before, typically when you open a package like this on the right hand side, you should see a little blue button with some sliders, and that takes you to your settings. In the case of your project settings, your packages settings, there's not a lot to set up. It's not like your costing platform within your build license, which has an enormous amount of settings before you can get going there. So it's pretty simple. You have to choose imperial or metric. In South Africa we are metric. Well, most of the world is metric except for basically half of America, but we sometimes do get involved in imperial projects in America, and in that case you would have to be able to do the imperial system as well. In our case we are going with a metric, so if anybody is from America and you do work in imperial, just note that you can also leverage the imperial system. And then there's a classification system 1 and a classification system 2. The idea behind this, the idea behind classification system 1 is to give you a basic structure for your takeoff. So you could imagine something like your unit class 2015 structure, which is exactly what we are going to use during this course. It's quite a simplistic structure that is handed out at the beginning of a project, and that tends to define the ownership of elements within a project. So it's also going to be common to you. It's the same as the assembly code, which is hard-coded into Revit from the get-go. And of course you can change the classification system out, but in any case in Revit as well, but there's the classification system here. So that would be the first classification system. The second classification system will help you to delve deeper into the structure. So what I've noticed quite a few suppliers do is they will use a rudimentary classification system, just focusing on their discipline, and then the classification system 2 would be specific to their company and the types of products that they provide. It might correspond to the catalog numbering system. Something like that is also possible. So that would be classification system 2, where you go into finer detail and you decide what it is exactly what you want to get out of that. So clicking on the classification 1, you can see I have already imported a classification system. This would correspond to the unit class 2015 system. Should be familiar to you. It's separated into the substructure. That's basically your structural foundations and your preparations to put the shell on top. Then the interiors come, then the services, your HVAC and your electrical equipment and furnishings after that, and then some special construction and building and site work. So all of these are included within the unit class 2015 service or standard, and basically it represents the sequence in which a building would be constructed and helps somebody like a project manager or a PM to plan the order of operations on the building site. You'll typically find that it is per level that they do this. And so it is also quite nice from a project management perspective to get quantities out of your elements like that. So in Navisworks, if you do not know Navisworks, which we won't demonstrate here, we usually use a similar classification system, but then applied per level. And in the same way within the Autodesk Construction Cloud, you could use your packages to separate your levels and then use the same classification system to achieve the same result. That would be an example of using a package to mimic what you could do in Navisworks. Of course, Navisworks is in certain instances or in certain aspects or capability a lot more detailed than what the Autodesk Construction Cloud is. For instance, you wouldn't be able to search for selection sets based on criteria, or you can't do timelining in here, but at least you can do quite a detailed takeoff. And it's got one added advantage over Navisworks, and that is that you can use character recognition or AI to recognize patterns to try and help you identify items depending on the types of drawings that you have to work with and the type of project. You might find that beneficial. Right. So that is the first classification. When you can export a classification from a project should you wish to use it in another project. So once you've set it up, you can export that and then you can re-import it. If you have got no existing classification structure, if you had to start a new project in other words, and then you could download a template for the classification structure, and it looks something like this. I'll just open it quickly. It is an Excel file which has an description. Okay, so it tells you exactly how it works. There's your code that you would put in the first column, and then the description, and then after that the level. The level determines the hierarchy of the tree. So if you look at the organizational structure, within your classification code, A would be level 1, foundations and basement construction would be level 2, within that your standard foundations would be level 3, and then within that the other items would be level 4. So you indicate that on the Excel spreadsheet. It's self-explanatory really. And then additionally you could possibly put a measure or a measurement volume in there that will automatically tell the software what measurement it must take off. So, and then when re-importing, the following is allowed: to add entries to existing levels, to add new categories and levels, to modify existing entries, the code, the description and the measure, and to remove categories or entries that are not needed. And entries in use cannot be removed without first removing all associated takeoffs. Okay, so that item number 5 is important because you can't use multiple classification systems on the takeoff. In other words, if you have more than, say you have company A with catalog A and company 2 with catalog B, you wouldn't be able to create a takeoff catalog for the project that incorporates both company A and company B unless they are put together in one classification standard. You can imagine for everybody on that project it might turn into quite a larger file, which is why I suggested at the beginning that you might consider using bridges to other projects where you can then separate these disciplines or these companies into their own hub where they can do the takeoff. Right, so there is a workaround, so it's not exactly perfect, but you can work around that to have a capable takeoff platform for different companies that are working on the project. And the notes, the default classifications can be exported and imported into a custom classification. The code structure is not validated, but levels are used to parent relationships, and the comparison on your import. Change the code will appear as added or removed. The parent code or level is changed, it will appear as added or removed, and the description measure are changed and will appear as modified. All right, so you can re-import, it will overwrite and alter the classification that you see there. So I have already prepared one of these files for us during this webinar, or what we are using during this webinar. So we'll just quickly have a look at that. Within my webinar folder, we've got the unit class 2015. I'll quickly put that together. And there you can see that we've got exactly the same file, but now it's populated with codes. There you can see code A and so on and so on and so on with a description and then a number. So all that I had to do this morning is to add the level numbers. I could of course have gone further. If I did this professionally, I would try and put the measurements in as I like. And you can download these from the NBS. If you are not familiar with that, it is a very useful resource. It is the NBS. And you'll find that on this NBS website, you can download the tables that are needed to have those systems or those classifications automatically available to you. They would have the unit class and then also the British standards for you to leverage if you are working in British standards. So re-importing that will just re-establish exactly the same code, but you then bring this Excel file into your project, and that creates a classification system. The other classification system that I created was not just basic, same thing again, exactly the same file, but this time around I just put together my own little code here for plumbing fixtures, where you can see that I'm more looking towards the project that I've created, or the types of items. I'm pretending to be a company, and maybe I'm providing the paper holders and holder spares, and maybe also some seat options, and over here specifically I put some seat hinges in. I just want to demonstrate the ability to calculate quantities. We say you have 2 seat hinges per water closet, and then also some certain catalog items that you could maybe order from a company. So my apologies if you're not familiar with the companies, but in essence, whichever company you are, you can then use this for quantity takeoff, set up your own catalog coding, and then use something that would map onto your catalog system for you to do automatic takeoff via Excel or something like that if you export afterwards. So that would be very useful. And that's with regards to the secondary classification system, which is the one that you would choose in there. Exactly the same structure. There you can see our plumbing fittings and our water closets. These are water closets. That of course is level 1, level 2, level 3, and then level 4. The individual items that you can see from there. So you might already be thinking that, all right, some of these systems are very big, and how can I get around that? And the answer is you can search for items if you know what they're called or where they are located. It's pretty easy to find them, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So that's with regards to the setup of the hub. That's the first thing that you should do. Decide, manage that with your company. Which classification systems are you going to use? Maybe consult the BIM manager on the project. And if they don't have a BIM execution plan to guide you, ask them for clarification on that. And then if there are going to be different companies working together on a project, maybe at your kickoff meeting, just go and have a chat to each other and say, all right, so guys, let's create bridges to new projects, and then we can all use our own classification system so we can do our takeoff. All right, so bridges are going to play a nice role in that. The bridges, if you're wondering, you'll find that under the docs platform. There you can see that you can create bridges, right? And all that the bridges are is that you can basically copy files between projects. So you don't have to download and upload again. All right, so that's within the docs package. But of course, we are busy with Takeoff, and Takeoff doesn't automatically show you those bridges. But that would be my recommendation. All right, so that's the packages. The settings are done, and now we are ready basically to start creating packages. So over here, you can see I have already created an earlier package, and I can add another one if I want. So I'm just going to add another one here, and I'm going to call it plumbing webinar. Alright, so I'm separating whatever I might have created earlier from a new package. There you can see the package, and you can keep on doing that. So like I said, you might want to do floor 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if you're building skyscrapers. That's maybe how you want to do it. Or if you are doing horizontal zones, maybe some infrastructure or something like that, you can use your zones to guide you. So either levels or zones, that would be the typical sort of thing that a project manager would do. And in fact, I would actually ask a project manager before, or the project manager on the project. I would first ask them exactly how do you guys want your quantities out of this platform, because if this is going to take the place of Navisworks, then one would have to do that as per the instruction of the project manager. Ultimately, they will be managing the quantities to put together within the building. All right, so packages, there's not much more to say about this. I mean, you can just create packages if you want. And then we've got the sheets and the models. So most of my clients, or most of our clients, micrographics, architects, civil engineers, or structural engineers rather, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, they all work within Revit. Most of them, a lot of the time, Revit. And so what I've got over here is just it was a sample file before the Snowden files came around. The Snowden files, if you are familiar with Revit 2024, there are new templates that way, or new sample files that they brought out for Revit, which are the Snowden towers, and they're very good models, but they're all imperial. So because most of our clients would be metric, I tend to revert back to this Kobe model that Autodesk released earlier with the help of the Americans. They created these field hospitals, and I've tried to rework these field hospitals into a coordinated model in the past. It's got a very nice, intricate HVAC system, which makes it nice. But in any case, so there are different disciplines here. Some of the files are linked in, so all of the ducting is linked in, and the mechanical file and the structural file and the architectural file are in here. We've also got some sheets that we can publish, and I'm looking at just 3 sheets for simplicity. We're using ground floor reference, AX1001, AX1002, the ground floor north, and AX1003, the ground floor south. It's just one floor, and then a north and a south part to that, just to be able to increase the scale on one of the drawings. So the next step from there, I just want to have a quick look at the webinar just to see. All right, I think we're good. So far, so good. All right, so getting back to the Revit interface, for those of you that do use Revit collaboratively, you'll know that you can set up your publish settings. So what that is most people only see the file that you're working with if they're looking through the Revit model, and when they synchronize, it'll synchronize up into the AWS, into Autodesk Construction Cloud, and it won't necessarily publish that onto the platform. So the idea behind this is you model a model until it's ready for approval by managers or by data managers, or whoever needs to vet the project, and then after that share the information with other teams. So it's just a way to hold off until publishing internally the information until you can be ready, that your design is ready, so that you don't waste your principals' times. And what we publish, that of course is decided by the publish settings. So in this case I created a publish set. You will see it looks a lot like a print set. It's for quantity takeoff, and I've included a 3D Navisworks format. It's not perfect, but it will suffice for this. And then after that we've got the 3 sheets that I've chosen to identify, and you can also use this filter to say exactly what you want to publish. And then after you've done that, you should synchronize just to make sure that you save those saves just in case anything goes wrong, which it hasn't yet, but touch wood. And then you would publish those from your interface, in your Autodesk Docs interface, from the place. They call this the place icon. There's your places, and you'll just notice that the publish status is governed by this little refresh. Alright, so after you've refreshed, I'm obviously not demonstrating this in real time, it would take too much time. I've already done this in preparation for the webinar, but that will refresh the status of your file so that you'll know how to publish. And then after that you can decide how you want to publish that. One of them is to publish the latest, if it was available. If that did affect changes, then I would be able to publish the latest model. The alternative to this, publish the latest without links. Right? Publish without links means that it unlinks the linked Revit models. Just be careful if you do work with topographies and with other types of links, that does not apply. It only applies to the Revit links. So that's just a basic overview of what we do over here. And then I also included some PDFs. The PDFs, of course, these days, PDF is built into Revit. That's a very great help. Very similar, where we create a set that we want to take off. In this case, it's just the plan views that we've chosen. And we've saved it onto a file. I save it directly into the ACC docs, so that it synchronizes up into the cloud. So you can see that first part there. And then I'm collating them all into a single PDF file. Just a quick note on this. If you didn't do this, if you didn't combine them into a single file, you did individual files, as soon as you do that, you'll see that it gets this little spanner coming up over here by the naming style. And here's the thing that I'm quite ashamed to say I didn't understand at the beginning when I was busy on a project, and I wasted an enormous amount of time because I didn't understand. But essentially, you have some parameter types over there, and when you're printing or publishing sheets to PDF, then if it's sheets specifically, of course, you would want to have the sheet information and the type and the view name over there. That, of course, is not the sheet name. So we would typically want to get rid of this and put instead the sheet name or the sheet nub and then the sheet name. And that is the way that you would actually create the printing of individual sheets. So just note, when you do publish PDFs from Revit, make sure that you use the correct category, parameter type rather, sheets for sheets. That works very nicely. Then you don't have to rename anything, and you'll save a lot of time in the long run. All right, so, but of course in this case I'm just saying single. Right, and then you would hit export, and it would export those PDF sheets into a file. So I have already done that. I saved it directly onto the Autodesk Construction Cloud over here in my architectural. There you can see that we've got the Takeoff PDF that I generated. It's a multi-page PDF. And of course that's nice because you can name them different things. Okay, so that's basically from Revit into the Takeoff platform. Right. It could be other platforms as well, for instance, Plant 3D, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, whatever files you are accommodating on there. Of course, you'd like to be able to create Takeoff. Not everything's going to be accommodated, and in that case, you would have to go and use something like Navisworks. So it's always a good idea at the beginning of the project, go and have a look and see what file types are you dealing with, so that you can plan accordingly towards doing the right thing for Takeoff. All right. So that's the setting up of the standards, and let's go on to the next. Okay, and then just a note on the PDFs. So vector PDF is definitely preferred. Vector PDFs create PDFs that has information about the start and the end of a line. For instance, it's got a point that recognizes start point, end point. Similarly with circles and other geometrical elements, the vector information is within the PDF. A raster PDF is quite common, however. So raster PDFs would be something like you go to a existing data structure in a company where they've printed a lot of drawings, and maybe they've plotted it and they don't have the files anymore, or they got it from somebody else, or it's a document on record with the council and they've digitized it, they put it through a big scanner, and in my experience that can be troublesome. So two things to remember over there, especially when you're dealing with raster PDFs. The one is include some measurements within your PDFs. The reason why I'm saying that is the longest measurement that you can create in the X or the Y direction. I normally do the X and the Y direction, especially if I'm linking files in or inserting files into my files, simply because with raster PDFs you find that the aspect ratio is sometimes distorted. This can happen due to paper stretching, but even if it is printed on lino, you will find that the software, if you had to rotate the software, so let's suppose that you printed something and it's a little bit skew and you decide to use some software to rotate it into position, even just doing something like that could distort the aspect ratio. So usually X and Y, and unfortunately the Takeoff only represents one direction, and for that reason I would always say, okay, if you can, vector, otherwise raster, but just note, bit of a flag, check the aspect ratio so that you don't get caught out. Maybe you should compensate for the quantities that you take off in some other way. And then with 3D model, again, just like we showed now with Revit, you can publish the latest model. In this case, it was a Navisworks view, 3D view that I published. If you don't publish a 3D view, it will publish the entire model by default. And then now this is where it gets interesting, because it's not directly connected with ACC docs like some of the other platforms. So it works a bit like Build, in the sense that you can publish a file from your docs into Build and create sheets, and the sheets are then leveraged via the ACC docs mobile app to go on site to take snags and create RFIs and so on. But with Takeoff, it's still a manual process, so you have to upload the file manually. So the one thing that you could consider doing, because you've got the docs license, is that you can put the documents through a review first, right? So because you've got Autodesk docs, you've got access to the review capability, okay? And what you do with a review basically is you say, you've got a, the webinar's not about reviews, but basically if you have a bunch of people that need to event a file before it's used for Takeoff, then you might want to do that. And then only after they have vetted it and it's tracked within the platform, would it be copied, say, into another folder from where it can then be uploaded to the Takeoff platform. In this webinar, I'm just going directly from my silo, from the architectural silo. I'm going directly into Takeoff, but just note that you could possibly put it through a review process, take it into a project folder or something like that, and then say, okay, I'm going to do my Takeoff based on the files that, say, argument's sake, within somewhere the folder within the architectural structure, and that could be based on a review process, just to make sure that the information has been vetted by somebody with the knowledge to say whether or not a PDF or a 3D model is suitable for Takeoff. So that would be my recommendation. And yeah, so that's the way that I would manage that. Just going on to the next slide. Right, just like we noticed before, the collaboration packages are not packages, and then packages are used for separating Takeoffs into manageable categories. Like I said, I suspect that it's going to be level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for skyscraper, and you can perform Takeoff separately for each package. That's great. We've mentioned that we have created some packages, and then we want to perform some Takeoffs. All right, so let's have a look how it works. Let's have a look how it works. You'll obviously go to your Takeoff over here, and then we've uploaded the model, but we can upload some files over here as well. Go through the upload files button. I tried to click drag files on earlier, and it did not perform very well. In fact, it didn't perform at all. And so in this case, when you do PDFs, you can do from files, which is very useful. Unfortunately, with 3D models, it did not work. But with PDF, you can actually browse to your wrong folder. It's in Collaborate, and it's within Architecture. It's in this root folder. And we are looking for the coordinate for the Takeoff file that we've got over there, and we can select that. All right, so what that does is it brings it in. And yeah, next. All right, and then with the PDFs, you can put them into version set. I'm just going to give it a name. Webinar 2023 10/13, and the issuance date could be today. And if you had an existing version set, you can also add it to that next to sheet numbers. So it goes through the same sort of process, it looks like. Character recognition. Sheet number duplicated in this list. Whoops. There's P2. There's P2. Let's take. We can take this one out. That's obviously an error over there. Let's see if we can override that. Okay. next to titles and tags. Select those and then draw sheet title area. There we go. Save and apply. That will then extract the sheet name and sheet area. You can publish them. Okay, you will get notification as well, view sheets. Alright, so there are the sheets, so they work a little bit like the sheets within the build package, and then of course your tags will be available for you to filter by should you wish to identify, say, all your plumbing sheets, electrical sheets, whatever it is that you would like to search for. So as you get more and more and more documents, you'd be able to leverage the filter over here. Okay, and then in addition to that, you've also got a publish log that'll tell you what was published when. So that's very useful. Okay, go back to sheets and models over there, and that's now available for you when you do your takeoffs. In the 3D models, I just loaded the 3D model in. If we open that model, you'll see that we've got the navigation, and in this case, because the published model, remember this is now not the PDFs that you are seeing over here, these are the actual sheets. All right, so it's picking up the actual sheet number. Obviously in this one with a printed PDF, it's recognizing with object character recognition, it's recognizing that I forgot to put the correct numbering on that sheet there, and it's got your usual classification or your section box tools here, so you can add a Z-plan. One of the interesting things that I did notice in here when you do a BIM takeoff is that the links are not automatically brought in. So again, it's probably discipline specific. Right. So let's have a look at that's the 3D model. Right. So 2D sheets and 3D models, separate from each other. These were extracted from PDF, and there you can see what they look like. Okay. So once you've got a package, you can open a package, and then you'll be able to leverage the files. First thing to do is that you want to go and create some takeoff types. So this is where your standards come in. So you can then go and define a new takeoff type. So you might say something like you want to take off, you have to give a name, and you can say something like, all right, I want to have water closets. That might be an example of the type of takeoff that you would like to do. How would you like to do them? You can do an area, you can do a length, linear, or you can do a count. In this case, I'm going to do a count, like that. Then, how do I want to represent them? As a circle. What's the fill color? There you can choose the color of the fill. So I'm going to say the fill is going to be blue. It's a nice bright color. And then put a little border around it. And then how big is it? And then the description. After that, you can put a description in. So water closet A, those are the types of things that I'm looking for. So it's a description of what you're taking off, and then on the primary output there, right, there you can add details. So what is the output name? Then you can say this is the water closet, and then you want to look for the classification. So you know it's going to be a service. Primary service is going to be plumbing. It's going to be plumbing fixtures. It's going to be water. It's going to be water closets there. And you can also search for, say, for argument's sake, the name, and it will isolate for you within that the things that are in there. So you can see water closets. Right? There's a water closet single. Right. So that makes sense according to the primary classification, which in this case is unit class 2015. Classification 2, this is going to be my water closet, and in that the water closet bowl, and then I'm going to go, I don't know, just take the, let's have a big smile, and then what is unit of measure, count each. Right. Save that. So there's a water closet. We can also edit that and then add an additional output. So we might want to say, okay, so for this water closet, the output name over here is going to be water closet hinge. And then on that water closet hinge, we are going to, that's going to be under water closet again. So let's just put it over there. And then classification 2, that's going to be hinge, seat hinges, count, and then you can put a formula in. You can say that's going to be two per bowl. So there's going to be 2 separate hinges. Right? I know it's a silly example, but you can do that. And then you can just add items like that. So you can nest, in other words, you can nest items within each other. Create yet another primary output over there, an additional output. It's got a little plus sign there. Click on the plus sign, and then you can add something else. Like in this case, it's going to be the seat, and classification again. It's going to be water closet. So I'm just doing this at speed. Of course, it might be something else, and then over there. Maybe we want to have an oak seat there, and that's going to be 1, right? So you can map quantities onto rudimentary quantities onto those. If you chose to have a different unit of measure, you can do square meters or cubic meters or tons and so on. Okay. So it could be a way to a volume or an area, and save. So that would define something for you there, and so you could carry on. Right, you can create one after the other, and then after that, you would have to go back to the sheets and the models. Okay. Here's the ground floor reference. Select document, and let's go to south. You can see it now opens that. It opens that document. All right. So the first thing during its takeoff is we have to set the scale. So you can see over there, I've included the longest scale. And the reason I do that is because you make the least amount of error over a long measurement like that. So I've taken from the outside wall over there to the outside wall over there, as well as from the outside wall over here to the outside wall over there. And it isn't applicable, really, because only one measurement is taken into account. So when you do when it says scale not set, it simply means the scale for the entire document X and Y has not been set. So it's only going to take one. What you can do over here is you can say calibrate, You can say select 2 points to calibrate the drawing. Okay, I must just make a note, 51,900. So I'm going to calibrate the drawing. I'm going to say from this exterior point over here to this exterior point over there. Okay, now it's going to be a bit difficult. How do we come on perpendicular? Okay, so that's maybe not going to work so well. Let's go vertical then. Yeah. So you can see you have to choose your dimensions very, very carefully. So let's do this again. Select 2 points to calibrate the drawing. I'm just going to go nearest to, where's it measuring to here. Let's take the longest distance. You can go from here all the way across. Are we going to make it? Just going to miss it. It's a tan of a small angle. I'll take it. The sine of a small angle is always 0. So I'm going to say that's 51,900. All right. So it's not super accurate, but it's good enough for this purpose. And then I say calibrate. So test your calibration, measure afterwards, give it a measurement and see what is the scale. So you can see here it's measuring the scale as 1:98. This drawing really is 1:100. We just judge it based on there. And then you can measure across. There you go, that's perpendicular. Right, and that measurement then tells me it's measuring 51,899.786. Alright, so it's quite accurate, it's not perfect. For the purposes of quantification takeoff units, I think that's sufficient. So when you've done that, you can switch out into Takeoff. Okay. You can click on water closets. You can see how this little item turns blue. Click on that, you'll see 2 different things, symbol detection and count. Right. How the count works is you click on count, and you navigate in there and you see, okay, there's a water closet. Let's put one here. There's one. Now you can see it visually, right? So that visual tab is nice because now you can very easily say if something has been taken off. You're saying, yes, done that one, done that one. Now, when your drawings are split like this, you just make sure that you take off the correct one so you don't duplicate the takeoff between sheets, because of course you can go onto a second sheet and continue the process. Just visually pick up if you can find everything. There we go. Almost done there. Have I got them all? So you can see this is a bit of a manual process where you use your brain and your eyes to do the object recognition. Right, so there I've got some of those. I've got 7 water closets in total, and there are 7 water closet hinges, 14 rather, times 2, and 7 seats. So those are the 7 toilets, or the 7 water closets rather that you find over there. Alright, so that was Pier 2, and then let's go to Pier 4. And on Pier 4 we can then carry on with that. So we're still within the webinar package, and then this time around we want to use some symbol recognition. So over here we can see what the symbol looks like, right? So let's see if we can do that. Drop that up and say symbol detection. Oops, scale hasn't been set. As usual, we need to set our scale first. Right, so in this case that's 52,730 is the longest measurement that's being measured there. So let me just quickly put that into my calculator to remember it. 52,730 is the distance over there. Let's do that. Let's set, calibrate the distance across from the exterior wall across to this exterior wall over there to perpendicular, we define the size as 52,730. Let's say calibrate, and then let's measure. Just to confirm. Okay, there's whoa, what happened there? My apologies. Okay, so that's 52,730. That's correct. It's 52,730. All right, so that is correct. So after we've calibrated, now we can do the character recognition. It's probably going to include this little line there, but let's see what it does. All right, so it's a good test. Let's do this. So it's water closets that we're interested in, and then after we've selected the water closets, sorry, let's go back. Okay. Let's then take them off. Symbol detection, click and drag over a symbol to begin. Right. So I'm going to sort of isolate this oblong type image over there, maybe have less info than more info. So let's try that again. I'm going to try and exclude as much information as possible to make it simpler. Let's try that. Let's try that. Apply. And what the software now does is it uses artificial intelligence to search for that symbol. I see we're running out of time for the webinar here, so I'm afraid to say. So there we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to say you can zoom out and you can see it's identified them. When you say save, and there it's done 8 in the takeoff. And just from a visual inspection, we can see that the rest is up there. All right, so just at the end of the webinar, I know we haven't managed to dive into it as deeply as I would have liked. Note that if you have done a takeoff like that, then you can always go into your package over there, and you'll see that you can go into here. It shows you the items in total, so 7 plus 8 is 15, and you can also export that to an Excel file that you can then manage. That's the takeoff. It looks like this. Puts it into table format, and there we can see the takeoffs that are coming out from that. Right. So just an intro, how do you get started? And my advice to you, if you want to learn more, please use your let's just go back to the just want to open this one quickly. If you go to your takeoff license, that's what I normally do, is I just go to takeoff there, and then whichever platform I'm interested in learning, at the right hand side over there you can see that you've got a question mark. Click on the question mark, go to help. That then opens up the help files. You will find that the performing takeoff is over there, right? And that is where you can find some more details about what we've discussed today. So hopefully that will be a guide for you into the future. So with that, unless there are any questions, we are going to bring the webinar to a conclusion. But I'd like to thank you for your time, and I hope that this platform can add a lot of value to your workflow. Should you decide to adopt it, then it might make your takeoffs a lot easier. If you don't understand Navisworks, then it might be an alternative to that, or otherwise, if you need advice on what platform would be most suited to you, please don't hesitate to contact us at Micrographics. We do appreciate your time, and we wish you the greatest of Friday the 13th, and like I said, I hope it brings you great luck today. So with no questions, goodbye.